Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me. This is Kathy, and today I'll be sharing two masculine cards that'll work for Valentine's Day, anniversary, birthday, for the guys. I'll be using the newly released Forest Stream cling mounted stamp, the Connected Hearts frame die, and previously released Tartan Plaid background, Extreme Postage Die Set, as well as the Happy Everything stamp set. I started out with a piece of Nina Classic Crest cardstock and I inked up the stamp using gray flannel memento ink. I did stamp it a couple of times to make sure that I got a nice clean impression. And then I decided to use the Connected Hearts die to die cut just the center part of the stamped image. After I ran it through my die cut machine, I did poke everything out of the frame. And I did keep the centerpiece and then the small little pieces because I'm going to be doing a little bit of paper piecing to put it back together. I had also die cut a piece of gray cardstock using the same Connected Hearts frame die so that I could do my paper piecing. I found it easier to work from the back side to do this. Once I had the largest die cut piece placed in the center, I started to piece in the smaller pieces and I just used Scotch tape to hold them in place. After I had done all of the paper piecing, I set that aside and started to work on my card base. I cut one of the pieces from the new Baby Bear 6x6 paper pack down to 4 by 5¼ inches. I used my tape runner to adhere that to the front of an A2 size card base that I had created using the same dark gray cardstock. Next, I adhered a piece of white cardstock right down the center, and then of course I had to add a bunch of foam tape to the back of the die cut heart. Once I had that in place, I decided that it needed a sentiment, and I probably should have done the sentiment before I adhered the heart with all the foam tape, but that's the beauty of a MISTI. If I don't get a clean impression the first time, I can keep stamping until I get it just right. The sentiments are from the Happy Everything set, and to make sure that I had the spacing right, I stamped the top part first, which reads "You Are My," and I used the same Memento gray flannel ink to stamp that, and just to make sure that I got a nice crisp impression, I stamped it a couple of times. I cleaned off the stamp and then I lined up the word "Everything" underneath it and inked it up with the same gray flannel ink. And again, I stamped it a couple of times just to make sure that it was nice and bold. And that's it for the first card. For the second card, I decided to do some faux postage. I thought it would be fun to cut apart the forest stream so it was a continuous image but cut apart, if that makes any sense at all. So what I did was I started out with a piece of Nina Classic Crest cardstock, and it's cut to 4¼ by 5½. Then I used one of the dies from the Extreme Postage die set and I die cut it 3 times. And I made sure to keep both the positive and the negative piece. I'm going to use the negative to line it up on the front of my card to get the stamping just right. Next, I used some washi tape to mask off the edges of the die cut postage pieces. I would recommend that you use a washi tape or some other masking tape that is sort of see-through. I used the little notches to line up the washi tape, and because this particular washi tape is see-through, it made it easy to get them lined up straight. Once I had the washi tape in place, I used a mini ink blending brush to add ink to the center of those postage pieces that I had die cut. I made sure to leave the washi tape in place on the die cut postage pieces so that when I went to stamp the image on the individual postage pieces, I was able to maintain that white border around each of the die cut pieces. Once I was done ink blending my 3 die cut postage pieces, I grabbed the negative die cut piece, added a little bit of temporary adhesive on the back, placed it on top of the stamp, and then closed the back of my MISTI. Then flipped it back so it was right side up and pressed down so that my frame would stick to the base of the MISTI. To stamp the image, I paper pieced the top die cut postage piece into the negative frame. Then I inked up the top of the stamp and stamped it down. And I did stamp it twice just to make sure that I got a really clean impression. Then I removed that first die cut postage piece and then paper pieced the second, and then I do the same thing with the third. I stamped them separately because of the overlap from the washi tape. And one thing to keep in mind is that the ink is going to stay wet on the washi tape. So be careful when you're taking it out of the frame, as well as removing the washi tape from the die cut pieces so that you can avoid any ink smudges. Once I was done stamping the little postage die cut pieces, I did remove the washi tape and I set them aside so that I could work on my card base. My card base is a top folding A2 size note card from Craft Cardstock. And to add in a background, I decided to use the Tartan Plaid background stamp. I placed the stamp face up on my work surface and inked it up with some craft colored ink. Then I very carefully placed my card base right on top of that and grabbed a piece of scratch paper and put that on top of my card base and rubbed really well to get the ink to transfer over to my card base. To finish up the card, I cut down a piece of brown cardstock to go down the center and adhered that with my tape runner. I did add foam tape to the back of the little postage pieces, and I laid them down on my card first to make sure that I had the placement right. Once I was happy with the placement, I removed the release paper from the piece that's in the center and adhered that down first. That way, if I didn't get that quite in the right spot, I could adjust the top and the bottom pieces to make the spacing a little bit more equal. And that is it. That finishes up my second card. I'll make sure to have everything that I used linked in the description box below for you. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.